So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk about the child grooming gangs that have come up in the news today. And what we've got, ladies and gentlemen, is a scandal that has. Are you all right? Yeah. A scandal that has become prominent in our news media today. Something that people haven't addressed until quite recently. When you look at the transcripts that have come out of the courts and you read them, like the ones that have come out of Oxford, and you read the court cases and what occurred in these grooming gangs, you begin to realise why working class communities feel so hurt and so wounded by the negligence of the state and the raping of children and the torture of children that so many people are just opposed to speaking about, including this speaker here who seems to think that talking about rape gangs is somehow wrong, is somehow unfair. Well, I think raping children is unfair. And when you read the transcripts, you realise that those children weren't just raped by grooming gangs, they were tortured by grooming gangs. And so I don't think we should even refer to them as grooming gangs any longer. We should refer to them as to what they are: rape and torture gangs. And this is something that is being unheard as the cries of the working classes have gone silent, precisely because of clowns like this, who's offended by the fact that I'm talking about it right now. He seems to think that these working class families don't deserve a voice. They don't deserve a voice. And so, as someone who comes from the north, I want to issue a personal thank you to Elon Musk. I want to thank Elon Musk for forcing this issue to the top of the world's news agenda. Because he's forced the elites to notice. He's forced the elites to talk about it. Now, he's not the first to try and raise awareness about it. He's just the most successful. In the past, Nick Griffin in the BNP tried to raise awareness about the rape and torture gangs. Jack Straw of the Labour Party tried to raise awareness about the rape and torture gangs. Tommy Robinson, in his activism and media with the EDL, tried to raise awareness about the rape and torture gangs. Sarah Champion of Labour tried to raise awareness about the rape and torture gangs. Nigel Farage tried to raise awareness about the rape and torture gangs. And as all of these people did, and others besides who I've not mentioned, they were met by a chorus of apologists for rape and torture like this man, who wants to silence the conversation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, our political establishment has failed to deal with this issue. How is it that Elon Musk had to be the one to force this issue to the top of the news agenda, but yet But yet the entire political establishment of the United Kingdom were completely silent, aided by people like this. People like this who facilitate, who enable rape and torture gangs to go under the radar. And unfortunately, this crackpot here has plenty of his counterparts as part of the establishment. There was a failure of our political establishment to protect thousands of children, ladies and gentlemen. Thousands of children were systematically raped and tortured by Muslim grooming gangs, and our political establishment didn't want to deal with it. And the real reason why our political establishment didn't want to deal with it is because the hatred of right-wing politics was more precious to them, than protecting children as young as 12 and 8 years old from being raped, brutalized and tortured by Muslim grooming gangs. And these fog blowers are the ones that help to cover it up. No, ladies and gentlemen. No, ladies and gentlemen. These grooming gangs were protected by a neurotic hatred of the political right in our establishment. And that caused a failure to act by the police, by the courts, by the social workers, by the politicians, by the media, who all conspired to be silent and to do nothing to protect these children for 40 years. 40 years this has been going on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that demonstrates that to the left-wing establishment, protecting left-wing narratives like multiculturalism, like cultural relativism, like social cohesion, are more important than protecting children. And unfortunately, there's countless clowns like these two who will do all that they can to silence raising awareness about these events, ladies and gentlemen.
I am the creator of the universe.
I want to encourage, ladies and gentlemen, for all those victims of these Muslim grooming gangs who have yet to come forward and to file complaints to the police, to do so in the coming year. Name your abusers. Name your accusers. Take them to the police. Have charges pressed against them. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that thousands of working class girls were systematically raped implicates thousands of people in our society, many of whom are workers in the councils, workers in the social services, workers in the police, who conspired to do nothing whilst these children were being raped and abused and tortured for the sake of community cohesion, for the fear of being called a racist. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the clown calls these victims crybabies. That tells you where his mind is. That the victim of child abuse and rape who complains about it is a is a crybaby. That's the left for you, ladies and gentlemen. We must break in this country the fictional taboo of Islamophobia. There is nothing Islamophobic about accusing rapists and child abusers of rape and child abuse. There is nothing Islamophobic about calling them Muslim grooming gangs, when in fact that is exactly what they were, ladies and gentlemen. It is not Islamophobic to stand up to a criminal enterprise. And these crimes continued for 40 years precisely because we were afraid to call them what they were, to stand up against them because we were scared of being called racists. How many lives were ruined? How many children's lives were destroyed for a political narrative? We have sacrificed the lives of children upon the altar of political correctness for a phony word that means nothing, that was invented by the Muslim Brotherhood as a way of silencing criticism of Islam. Islamophobia is a fiction, ladies and gentlemen. Can I get some water, bro? Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Labour Party had a chance this week to launch a national inquiry into the Muslim grooming gangs, and every Labour MP, to the last man and woman, refused to do so. And they refused to do so because they are on the hook of an Islamist vote in their Muslim strongholds. Many seats of the Labour Party are held by wafer-thin majorities and are threatened by independent Muslim candidates who support Hamas. And if Labour was to launch a national inquiry, they would lose those seats, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why Labour is not willing to do what it should. The reason why the elites don't want a national inquiry into this crime, ladies and gentlemen, is because many of the elites would be found guilty of covering it up. Many top civil servants, many top police officers, many top judges, many top councillors, many top child protection officers would all be found guilty of criminal neglect, of corruption of office. And for those reasons, our elites will not and do not want an inquiry that will implicate them in the national cover-up of a national crime on industrial scales, ladies and gentlemen. And the Conservative Party was no better. For 14 years they were in government. For 14 years they also did not want an inquiry into this issue. And the reason for it is exactly the same as Labour, ladies and gentlemen. The Conservative Party is right now jumping on a bandwagon. The leader of the Conservative Party, for the 14 years that Conservatives were in government, never raised this issue once. So why is she raising it now? Because she is afraid of the Reform Party, ladies and gentlemen.
Political football, in other words, Bob.
And Nigel Farage was raising this years ago, though himself was too late. The mainstream media also, for 40 years, has suppressed any discussion on this topic by accusing and attacking people who tried to raise it, because the left-wing media pushes and propels a left-wing political narrative and is frightened, ladies and gentlemen, of that narrative being interrupted. So when the BNP raised it, when Jack Straw of the Labour Party raised it, when Tommy Robinson raised it, when, let me just get a name, bear with us, when Sarah Champion of the Labour Party raised it, when Nigel Farage raised it, the liberal left-wing media accused these people of racial hatred, of incitement, of hate speech. But who's the liar now? Who's the one that has lied to us? Not the aforementioned, but the left-wing media, ladies and gentlemen. Because these left-wing elites do not value the lives of white working class girls, ladies and gentlemen. They are, in the words of Jack Straw, easy meat to the Muslim grooming gangs. Not my words, but the words of Labour Party Jack Straw, who was dragged over the coals of the Labour Party for trying to raise awareness about this issue. It wasn't, ladies and gentlemen. Consider, ladies and gentlemen, how the media rightly and correctly made a fuss and a big deal about the murder of Stephen Lawrence because it was a hate crime. They correctly held the establishment to account, the police to account, and they were right for doing so. So how much more must the rape of thousands of girls not also be worthy of attention if the murder of a single black boy could launch a national inquiry? Ladies and gentlemen, it is not without precedent to use a crime on this scale to change the debate and the course of a country, and that is exactly what we should do. We need in this country trials on the scale of the Nuremberg trials across the entire political establishment. Police officers should lose their pensions and be thrown in prison. Judges should be thrown in prison. Media outlets should be fined and prosecuted. Social workers should lose their jobs and careers. We need in this country, ladies and gentlemen, a new political establishment. If you want to hear me, I want to invite you to move closer. If you want to hear me, I'm going to invite you to move closer. We need in this country, ladies and gentlemen, a new political establishment. Our old political establishment in this country is rotten from top to bottom and is only interested in self-serving policies and narratives that enrich themselves and keep themselves in power. And ladies and gentlemen, if the price of that is the rape of thousands of white working class girls, then they are willing to pay that price, ladies and gentlemen. We need in this country a political establishment unafraid of conflict, unafraid of tackling the rot inside of the Muslim community. No, I'm not saying all Muslims are responsible or all Muslims are guilty, but the crime on this scale could not have been carried out without a widespread rot within their culture that needs to be challenged and to be called out. Do you think that so many hundreds of people could have been carrying out these crimes without people knowing and going along with a doctrine of silence? No. To be clear, ladies and gentlemen, to be clear, I'm going to tell you as a critic of Islam that the Muslim grooming gangs were not following Sharia principles. There's nothing in Sharia fiqh that would justify what these grooming gangs did. But, ladies and gentlemen, these crimes of the Muslim grooming gangs emerged out of a milieu of Islamic culture that was marked by supremacy of the Muslim community over other people, a hatred of the kuffar, the unbeliever, a belief in sexual slavery, which is Sharia law, and the belief that you can marry and have sex with children, which is also in Sharia law. When these things are the backdrop of your culture, you create a milieu out of which Muslim grooming gangs can arise, even though they are themselves contrary to Sharia law. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why this was allowed to happen was because we have replaced the Christian values of the United Kingdom with the liberal values of the West. The liberal values of the West prizes relativity over absolute moral standards. Liberalism prizes the idea of multiculturalism over the idea of Christian culturalism. Liberal society, ladies and gentlemen, prizes social cohesion over truth. And in every one of these examples, Christianity was the alternative that was sidelined, ladies and gentlemen. The only way that we will find the courage to address this issue is to return with fortitude in our heart to our Lord Jesus Christ and to once again embody his teachings. Christianity values the lives of children and elevates them because of Christ's teaching. Christ himself said, "Suffer not the little children to come unto me, for I tell you, before the throne of heaven, there are angels that stand for each one of them. And it is better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be thrown into the sea, than that you should cause one of these children to stumble." If we had honored Christ's teachings, we would have gone with our full might into the Muslim community to shatter these Muslim grooming gangs. But we have abandoned Christ and his truth for liberals' relativism and multiculturalism and the idol of social cohesion. And so our state turned a blind eye. Repent of liberalism, embrace Christianity, and smash the Muslim grooming gangs.
Smash him!